So, welcome here. Wow. There's a lot of people gathering here, which I feel quite excited about. I love the energy of the field. I can feel the energy, the field building. Um, and I've actually been feeling it as people are signing up over the last few weeks. So, welcome here. This is just a really short talk. We're just here for an hour to introduce you a bit to my training, which is called Our Journey Here. And you probably know already, it's training for practitioners to support you in being able to recognize prenatal and perinatal material as it arises in your session work. And what I've found over the years is that the most important thing in being able to recognize and meet that material is to do our own work. So the training includes that. But you'll see more about that. I just really want to welcome people as you're arriving. And just to say, I've invited people to put something in the chat box saying hello and where you are. And so there's London, Netherlands, Wales in the UK, Israel, Scotland, Arizona in the US, Colorado in the US, Sussex, England, Vermont, USA, just out of the swimming pool. Lucky you. Must be cold though. I hope it's south coast near Beachy Head. I'm guessing that's in the UK. But Haifa in Palestine, Israel. Welcome. Netherlands, St. Petersburg. Whoa. Ireland, Netherlands, Poland, London, and I know there's others and others coming. So something I love about Zoom, that we can meet from all over the world. And I have had people comment on, how I run the training, even though we're online, and you might wonder how you can work with pre and perinatal material online. People feel like it's set up like an in-person course. And so it's important to me that we be able to connect with each other. I keep the training small to 12 participants. And so that, it's very relational and relatively intimate. And it's very interactive. People sometimes ask me, can I miss a module or two? And no, it's meant to be in person, really participating. So I ask, whoever comes to really commit to the training. But part of what I love about it, when I've taught in person, which I haven't done now in 3 years because of the pandemic, people do come from other countries, but that's much easier on Zoom. And I love the multicultural influence. I think I have heard this from other people, that it really kind of underlines the universal nature of our pre and perinatal experience. And unfortunately, pre and perinatal trauma, which we look at quite a bit in the training, but we're also looking at pre and perinatal potential. So if you think about, little unicellular organism that we begin as after the sperm and egg come together, we have incredible potential to develop these, quite complex bodies, for one thing. So how do we tap into that potential that may have become occluded by difficult experiences? So I hope that's sounding interesting. My intention for our time today is to give you a little taste of some things that we do in the training, and to kind of look at an overview of what happens and to answer questions. So one thing that we do a lot in the training is we settle and we meditate. I really work with somatic, mindful inquiry approach. So important to be mindfully in our bodies as much as possible. And and we deepen into that more and more. So I'd actually like to start by guiding you through a short meditative little settling. So if you're willing to do that. So I'd invite you just to begin by noticing, being curious, what's present for you as we begin, having just heard the few things I've said so far and coming into this field with other people who are probably curious, probably like you, about this field and this training. And maybe you have some thoughts, feelings, emotions left over from whatever has happened in your day so far. What's present for you just now? And what's present for you in terms of sensations? What are you aware of in your body? Can you feel your body? What stands out for you? And often we begin in a place of, if we notice our bodies at all, we notice the aches and pains, places that are complaining. So that may be what's standing out for you. But part of what I'm informed by is my practice of continuum, a mindful movement practice developed by my dear mentor, Emily Conrad. And in continuum, we ask an important question, which is, what else? Meaning, what else is present here? What else is possible here? If you find yourself just being aware of aches and pains and tensions and whatever, what else is present? What feels okay in your body just now? Maybe something even feels good, but there's probably something that feels okay. And how is it to orient to that? Something that feels okay in your body. And that may include a sense of what, well, in continuum we call ground. I like to call it ground. A sense of Mama Earth holding us in her lap. Can you feel your relationship with gravity, with Mother Earth just now? Maybe you feel that in your feet, your legs, or where your body meets what you're sitting on. Maybe there's some sense of the weight of your body. And how is it to feel your ground, the support of Mama Earth under us? And I notice as I settle into that, I take a deep breath. So I invite you to also be curious about your breath. Can you feel your breath just now? And how fast or slow does that breath feel? Just being curious. There's no judgment needed. It's just however it is. Is it possible to rest in the breath? Just allowing yourself to rest in this awareness of the filling and emptying of the breath. And as we're with our ground and our breath, there's also the possibility of sensing heart. Notice what happens for you when I mention heart. Can you feel your heart? You may want to put a hand over your heart to sense it more easily. Notice if you do that, notice how it is to put your hand there. Can you feel it? Does your heart feel your hand? Does your hand feel your heart? It's a two-way communication, a relationship. You may have a sense of your heart beating. Which it's been doing since about 4 weeks after you were conceived. Isn't that amazing? And that is very likely to have been around the time that your parents discovered you existed, discovered the pregnancy. Notice what happens for you when I mention that. Discovery will be something we'll be looking at today a little bit, is a very important prenatal milestone. And it's a time when little ones especially need to be welcomed. And so we have the possibility just now of welcoming ourselves. This training, we work with a number of principles that I learned from another mentor, Ray Castellino. And the first principle from the Castellino work is the principle of welcome, which is about welcoming ourselves, welcoming each other, and welcoming each moment. So whatever your history has been, and including whatever you've experienced already today, is it possible to welcome yourself in this moment and to welcome this moment? Just being curious how it is to consider welcome. I like to practice resting in my heart with an intention of unconditional acceptance, welcome, being. And I invite you to do the same. And I'm hoping this little exploration so far has been supportive for you in being able to settle and arrive. If you feel like you need more than that, I invite you to consider what else is supportive for you. What speaks to you of wellness, tells you you're okay, tells you you're safe. Resource. We find it's extremely important in approaching this territory of our very early lives from a place of being resourced. So just checking in, what supports you in resting just a bit more into this moment. And gently as you're able, as you're ready, letting your body move and stretch any way that feels good to you. I'd encourage you, as you're able, to gently open your eyes, to let yourself look around the room that you're in, really see where you are in this Sunday, March the 5th, 2023. Amazing, it's 2023. And I'm just going to shift my view here so I can see all of you. And I invite you to do the same. We can actually connect with each other here, hopefully from that place of ground, breath, heart, of welcome. If we were in person just now, we'd be sitting in a circle. And I would be inviting you to look across the circle and make eye contact with someone. That's a little bit tricky online with a group. You can do it with one person, but it's hard with a group. But what we found is that we can make contact and it can feel really good, like eye contact can. And I think of it as heart contact. So something that comes from the Castellino work also that I really love. And so you can choose somebody here. Feel free to choose me if that's what's comfortable. But yes, I imagine some of you might know some other people here, or not. It doesn't matter. But choose somebody and let yourself imagine you're making contact with that person. Imagine you're making eye contact. You might feel your heart making contact, and offer welcome to that person. And know that somebody's looking at you, maybe the same person, and they're welcoming you. And then maybe let yourself shift to someone else. Welcome them, exchange a welcome. And someone else. Notice what's happening inside you as you have an intention to make contact in this way with different people. Hopefully it feels good. And what we do in the training is that we can ask for contact, which can be really helpful, can be really resourcing and supportive. And we ask for contact by doing a slow wave like this. So if you do this and somebody responds, you know they're available for contact. So feel free to do that here at any time. Ooh, that feels good. I feel like my heart is giggling. I don't know. I'm curious because I actually can see a lot of you. Does this feel good to anyone here? Put up your hand if it feels good. Oh, good. Okay. And yeah, sometimes it stirs up a history of not being welcomed. And so then there's the possibility of really acknowledging that and mindfully inquiring into that. Oh, what is that? And can I welcome that experience? Yeah. Can I welcome that aspect of myself? So, but I really want to welcome all of you here, all of us here. And I see some people are still arriving, so welcome if you've just arrived. And what I'd like to do is show you a few slides as a way to introduce a little bit about the training. So, do you feel ready to see some images and hear a little bit about the training? Okay. So, and just to say while I'm sharing my screen, that in every session in the training was some kind of settling and usually making some contact. So, can you see my screen? Great. So, introducing our journey here. I got this little wee one representing perhaps who we were, and maybe who our clients were. And you notice what happens in your heart when you see that image. You know, mine feels kind of warm and sweet. And I'm feeling very fortunate. I have a new little granddaughter who just turned 4 months old. Well, actually, I think tomorrow she turns 4 months old. And I got to see her when she's just a month old. She lives in London, which is 3.5 hours away from us. Here, I'm in Devon in the UK. So that looking at this little one reminds me of that. It felt so sweet to hold her. I got to give her a little cranial session. She has a little cranial session. It was a big cranial session for a little person. So I'm going to move to the next slide. And I just wanted to introduce a concept that I feel is very important in looking at pre and perinatal development. And it's the idea that developmental milestones don't just happen after birth. You know, people who look at development look at how we are when we're first able to lift our head and we're first able to creep or crawl or, you know, sit or roll over or stand or walk or talk. You know, all those are milestones. But there are some very important developmental milestones that happen on our journey here before birth, as well as during birth. And the same principles that apply to any development apply prenatally. And so first of all, each step of development involves meeting challenge. That's an embryological principle, and it applies throughout life. Okay, so we're met with a challenge, and in order to deal with it, we have to change something. And that's how we develop. So developmental milestones actually begin before conception. You know, the sperm and the egg go through various challenges in their development and then on their way towards each other. And they continue through birth and beyond. In order to meet a developmental milestone, to meet the challenge at that time, we need to be adequately resourced. And I could say that all of us were adequately resourced, or we wouldn't be here for those prenatal milestones, those challenges. Because at that stage of life, the kinds of challenges involved in our development are a matter of life and death. I'm taking a breath with that, just pausing with that for a moment. That quality is what can make looking at prenatal and perinatal history challenging. Because it's very easy to slip back into the memory of that time, which is not remembered verbally because we're not verbal at that time. It's remembered somatically in our bodies. It's an implicit memory. And the nature of implicit memory is that we feel like it's happening now. And if the challenge was a matter of life and death, we can feel like we are again in a life-death kind of situation. And that usually isn't true when we're feeling it, but it was true back then. Okay? So we need to practice differentiating. So we know that we all had enough resource to get through those challenges, or we wouldn't be here. But we may not have had enough resource to thrive at the time. We survived, but we might not have thrived. So there may be some imprints left from that time, some scars, if you will. And what we experienced at that time can profoundly affect our psychological as well as physical tendencies throughout life. So our relational tendencies, how we go into relationships, how we perceive and experience relationships, how we participate in them, our sense of self, our beliefs, you know, about how the world works. Oh, the world is a dangerous place, for example, often comes from that early time. And yeah, it can affect our somatic experience and our physical formation. We'll look a bit at that more specifically. We can also revisit these challenging moments in order to access their original potential. So the way I see it, and I've written a book about this, Spirit and Form, which I know some of you have read. Thank you. It's the text for the training, by the way. That at every level of every stage of development, there's potential available. If we experience trauma at that time, because we didn't have enough resource to meet it easily, we didn't have enough support, we might not be embodying the potential from that time. But we can find it again, which is why I do this work. It's part of why I do the work. I also do it to enhance awareness so that the little ones coming into the world don't have to go through what we probably went through. You know, it doesn't have to be so difficult for them. So just going to move to the next slide. And what I wanted to do is to look specifically at just one of the milestones to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. What we do in the training is we look at these milestones, we explore them in depth. The very important one is discovery that I mentioned during the meditation, actually, I found welcoming. It tends to relate to the time when the heart begins to beat. And so how we experience our parents' reception of us when they discover our existence tends to be recorded in this area of the heart and the chest. So discovery, this is a term that I learned from another mentor, William Emerson, who defined it as when the pregnancy is confirmed. And it tends to influence our ability to feel welcome, to experience acceptance or rejection. Whether the discovery is met with celebration by our parents, like, we have a baby coming, or coping, it's like, oh, what are we going to do about this? Or worse. That can affect our ability to experience ourselves, our lives as being celebrated or being worthy of being celebrated. Or do we just cope? And it has profound effects on prenatal bonding, the foundations of bonding that begin long before birth. Okay, you can imagine if a little one feels rejected at this time, it might be difficult for them to feel safe and welcomed later in life by, say, the mother who has rejected them. Which isn't to say it's not possible. Right? Some of the potential is about feeling welcomed, feeling accepted. So as we heal in relation to discovery trauma or a difficult experience, then we can come back to our ability to feel welcomed and accepted, to experience love, relational presence, to really be able to be present in relationships and experience others being present with it, to come out of hiding. And it's very common for people who have had issues at discovery to try to stay small. It's like they're expecting before the discovery that they're not going to be welcomed. Babies tend to know that. They can feel it. And so they try to stay small. Or maybe once they've been discovered, they try to stay small so they won't attract any more rejection. So I've often found when I do supervision with practitioners, and often, especially with new practitioners, they need to get their website out and they need to let people know they exist, and they're terrified, or they just can't do it. They know they have to do it, but they can't get themselves to do it. And when we work with it, we find ourselves going back to this time of discovery. And when something shifts, then they can start putting themselves out and come out of hiding. And there's also, you might say, the reward of self-acceptance as healing happens in relation to discovery. So, and these images relate to different kinds of situations. See this woman, not sure if she has any support. Is she on her own? Was she planning to have a baby? What's her situation? That's going to affect her baby. Whereas this couple looks to me really happy about it. Oh, we have a baby, That's going to have a very different effect on their little one. Fortunately, repair is possible at any time. So where that hasn't happened, if any of you are parents and are feeling bad about it, or you have clients who might be in that position, it's possible to do repair. I'm really sorry, but we just weren't in a place to welcome you back then. But we're so glad you're here. We're loving having you as a baby or whatever age the person is. It's possible. Now go to the next slide and look at this in a bit more detail. So tendencies, personality tendencies for people who have had discovery trauma. There's a tendency to be dissociative, not quite here, to be disembodied. Because it's a time, we also look at embryology in the training. I don't have any slides of it here, but the time when discovery usually happens is a time when we start to have a more three-dimensional form, more of an animal kind of form. There's more of a place to come in and be embodied for the spirit coming in. And so when that's difficult, it can be difficult to be embodied, and it may feel dangerous. People with this kind of history can tend to be testing, expecting to be rejected. Those really difficult people that you've met in your life, it's possible they had a really difficult time at discovery. And when we understand that, it might be easier to have compassion for them instead of just being annoyed or trying to avoid them. On the contrary, some people who have had discovery trauma tend to act really good and be conforming, so they won't be rejected again. And that's actually very common for people who have been adopted when they're children. They're really good. When they hit adolescence, they start to make up for it often, then they start acting out, expecting to be rejected. But we don't have to have been adopted to follow that pattern either. They can be very easily hurt because they have that early wounding. Being invisible, I mentioned. So here's a little invisible girl. Here's someone the opposite, being obnoxiously out there. It's like, I'm not going to feel my vulnerability. I don't care if anybody rejects me. Here I am. Pay attention to me. We all know people like that, probably. But I look at these images and I wonder what these people's discovery history was like. Very easy to be depressed and inward because it's too scary out there. If we look at the next slide, the body can also express history. So often there are chest, heart, breathing issues. So I look at this guy here, and I'm reminded of something I learned from Emily Conrad in continuum classes, where she would really note how these tissues, look how hard they look. They look like stone. That's very protective. Okay, this guy is protecting against something. And he may have established that as early as the time of discovery. Whereas this young guy, I think he's trying to look cool, but look how caved in his chest is. To me, it's very painful. It's like, I feel like I want to give him a big hug. It's okay. And then this woman, this is also like a cool way to look, but look how pale she is. Look how distant her eyes are. she looks quite dissociative to me. That's a very popular way to look. We live in a very dissociative world these days. But all of these things can relate to that early time. So I'm going to move on. It's just a little introduction to discovery, which is one of the milestones that we look at in the training. It's an important one. It affects so many people. So before I move on, I invite you to take a breath, feel your ground, heart, welcome, contact. And let's look a bit at the training. So what happens in this training? So first of all, the training has 6 seminars. They're each 3 days long, online. And they go through development, basically. So we start with, in seminar 1, the journey to the womb, which is preconception. So how the egg and the sperm develop and what they're exposed to in terms of the parents' psyches and experience, epigenetic influences. So if you're not familiar with that term, how genes are turned on and off in relation to ancestral experience of the parents, the grandparents, maybe even further back. And the journey towards conception, how they come towards each other and communicate with each other. And then we have to wait until seminar 2. So we're looking at that, and we're looking at psychological, behavioral correlates with that. Before we get to seminar 2, I'll just mention that, especially in the first few seminars, with each seminar, we're also working with developing verbal trauma skills, because we're likely to be meeting trauma here. And so how do we meet the trauma? How do we inquire into it with somatic mindfulness and compassion and presence, rather than diving into it and getting lost there, which in modern trauma work we find isn't particularly helpful. It may help to develop some insight, but it doesn't tend to resolve the nervous system activation in relation to it. So we start working with that in seminar 1. In seminar 2, conception happens. So the egg and the sperm come together, and then this new organism starts traveling towards the womb, which is called the implantation journey. And there are various challenges to meet along the way. And we look at the embryological development and the challenges and the potential and how that can manifest in life later. In seminar 3, we arrive into the womb. And so we're looking at implantation, when the blastocyst, as it's then called, finds a way to meet the uterine wall and make a nest. So it's reaching in. It's actually our first physical contact with mother. So that's a very profound time. And it's a time all of us made it through that time, but many little ones don't. So we'll look at the challenges of that time. And we also look at what's called umbilical affect, which is a very important concept in the field. Umbilical affect refers to the emotional influences of the mother that are coming in umbilically. Affect is a psychological term for emotion. So what the mother is feeling, perceiving, experiencing has a direct effect on the baby. And we look at that. And how to support. So important, being able to support pregnant women and families. So there can be positive umbilical affect. It's not always negative or wounding. And maybe I'll just mention in relation to this time that we also look at a very important concept in pre and perinatal psychology and therapy, which is double binds. If you're not familiar with the term double bind in English, it refers to when there is no satisfying solution. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Pardon my language, but there's no better way to put it that I know of. And that happens again and again for little ones. Again, things are often a matter of life or death. So for example, we are completely dependent on what's coming in umbilically for our nourishment. But there may also be toxicity coming in. You know, maybe the mother lives in a very polluted area or has a very difficult relationship or is ambivalent about the pregnancy. All of that is toxic for the baby, and the baby doesn't want it. But they can't. They might want to push it away. But if they do, they don't get the nourishment they need. So that's a double bind. So we do quite a bit around how to recognize and work with double binds, because they can be very seductive and sneaky and overwhelming quite easily. But they don't have to be. They can become really interesting. So we move on to seminar 4. We look at discovery that I was just mentioning, and prenatal bonding, as you can imagine, is very related. Seminar 5, we get to birth, passing through the portal, and all the dynamics, both physical and psychological, related to that. And seminar 6, we go to postpartum, birth, bonding, and beyond. So what happens after birth? And I actually relate that to the other end of life, which is death, and how we tend to die in a similar way to how we were born. And there are other similarities. So those are the basic topics. What happens in each seminar is, again, we do a lot of settling, meditation kind of things. And I present some information through PowerPoints like this, in a lot more depth than this. And we do various kinds of experiential explorations. And in each seminar, you have at least one practice session that relates to whatever topic we're on. And I do a demonstration of the practice session with one of the participants. So you get to have a free session with a lovely holding field. And then we have time, excuse me, in breakout rooms where you work in triads. And actually, let me stop sharing for a moment. And oh, hello, there you are. Hello, contact. Oh, it's nice to see everyone. So in the triads, you have a chance to be a practitioner and try out your new skills. You have a chance to be an explorer and, explore whatever the territory is for you with good support. And the third person in the triad is a witness holder, which can also be quite a powerful role. And to me, it was very important when I was developing this for online that it be as safe as it is in person. But in person, it's like I and the assistants could be sitting around the room and getting a sense of what was happening and going in as necessary. And that can't happen online when you're in breakout rooms. So I realized it was really important to have constant supervision in the breakout rooms, which means that I or one of the assistants is always with you in the triad practice sessions. And we may just be sitting there holding the field, but we're available for support. We're not there to judge you or anything, but we make suggestions once in a while, or we say, wow, that's great. So, we're there for support. So that, to me, that's really important, that everyone be safe in the work and not be going off into getting lost in their history. Because again, we don't find that helpful. So I have a couple more slides. Are you okay for a bit more? Alrighty. Let me share my screen again. Before I leave this slide, I just want to bring your attention to Spirit into Form here, which is my book that serves as a text for the training. So if you're planning to take the training, I suggest you get a copy of the book so you can start reading it. And there's assigned reading between seminars. We don't actually go through the whole book, but we go through what's relevant to each seminar. And you're, of course, welcome to read the whole book. That's encouraged. Then I'll go to the next slide. And just a few things that are included in the training. So what will I learn if I join this training? So an important piece is deepening mindful presence. We had a taste of that with the meditation in the beginning. Trauma verbal skills, or verbal trauma skills, however you put it. Being able to meet trauma when it comes up, to support people in not being overwhelmed and not getting lost in the trauma, not re-traumatizing themselves. Looking at what are potential traumas in prenatal development, birth, and the postpartum period. So we looked at a little bit at the developmental milestones and discovery in particular, but we'll look at a lot more. How to recognize prenatal and perinatal trauma and potential when it arises. And different from how some people work in the field of pre and perinatal therapy, I don't go looking for trauma. My intention is to be present with you. And that's what I want to teach you to be present with what's there. But what seems to be true is that most practitioners aren't aware of pre and perinatal trauma, or aren't enough aware of it to be able to recognize it and meet it. So we're in the training, we learn about it so that we can be aware of it and recognize it when it comes up. And also develop essential skills for meeting those experiences, meeting little ones, if you actually work with babies or little children, and working with little ones' states at any time in life. So it's very common when this material comes up for someone to slip into being like a little one. And little ones need certain things, like they need us to slow down our pace. They need us to welcome them, to recognize them, to acknowledge what's going on, to receive them. And a lot more. Very importantly, how to support yourself as a practitioner when pre and perinatal themes arrive in session work and in the relational field. For example, when double binds come up, it can be very confusing. And it's really helpful to understand how to work with that. But also important to know how to resource yourself, to settle yourself enough, to do your own work so that you can be present to support someone. And so how to support mindful inquiry in yourself and in your clients. Very important. So there are obviously a lot more details that we go into, but I think that's kind of an overview of what you learn. And just one more slide. And this is on my website, what the course includes. So there's 18 days, 6 interactive 3-day seminars online on Zoom. You get lifetime access to the video recordings of presentations and demonstrations from each class. I should say, I don't actually record demonstrations with where I demonstrate the practice session because that's confidential. But other things are demonstrated and recorded. Guided experiential explorations and triads, as I mentioned, supervised by a team member in the breakout rooms. Somatic movement explorations within the group, those can be fun and informative. And, we get to move, we use our bodies, learn from our bodies. You get PDFs of the PowerPoint presentations from each class, handouts and readings between each seminar. There's additional videos, recommended reading, and also a reference list for further study and exploration, and specific assignments between seminars. The main one, besides reading, the main one is a final essay or project on a relevant topic of your choice that I will review and give you personal feedback on. And at the end of it all, you get a certificate of completion. and we celebrate. So I just want to quickly, hopefully this will work quickly. My internet can be a bit slow. There we go. So if you haven't seen it already, this is the page on my website, birthingyourlife.org. That's about the training. And it has another little video here and some information. This is what we're at. This is our lovely team. And they're all...
We can't see the page.
Oh, really? That's strange. Okay, let me see. What if I try this again? Thank you. Maybe it'll work this way. Can you see it now? Oh, good. Okay, take two. Sorry about that. So yeah, this is the page on my website. So just scrolling down, you can look at this yourselves. But I just want to bring your attention to, we've already looked at this, but the dates are here. We start May the 14th, so it's definitely time to apply. You can get a PDF of a more specific schedule if you click on this. I don't want to take the time to do that right now in case there's questions. And then the application form, see if it'll do this. Can you see my Google Doc? Oh, good. Yeah, so this is the application form. You can look it over. And if I think I can access this. So the course materials are all on resourcingyourlife.org, which is our online school. And so you will be registered for the course. And when you're registered for the course, you log in, you choose the course from my courses, and just go down here. So go down to curriculum. This is from the course that just ended. Okay, but this is similar to what you'll have. So for each seminar, you have the Zoom link and lots of other things that relate to that seminar. Okay, so this also includes, so there's handouts for each seminar. We do a movement exploration around sperm movement in the first seminar. This is the music for it. There's home activities after each seminar, PDF of the slides, recordings of meditations. And then there's more for each seminar. Okay, I won't go through them all, but I just wanted to give you a brief picture of that. So that's what I wanted to let you know about. It took a little longer than I'd planned. I was hoping to have 15, 20 minutes for questions, but I'm wondering if there are any questions or comments. And actually, I'll also invite, we have a couple of the assistants here. Maybe Andrea, And Federica, you want to raise your hand? These are two of our wonderful assistants. And there's also people, I think there's still some people here. Some people had to leave, but I think there's still some people here who have taken the training. You're welcome if any of you'd like to say anything about it. And if there's any questions from anyone. So it's I'll probably see you if you just raise your hand at this point, or you can use the little raised hand button. Yeah, Maria, hi.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Tariona. I did take the course, and I just want to say, even just reviewing it today, it was very beautiful even to have a review of what we did. And the course, I experienced it as profound and healing, and it has influenced my work. I feel like I could take it again and benefit as deeply. It is such profound and deep work, and it was done in a very beautiful way to support each person, I felt, in the process. And yeah, I would encourage anybody who's thinking about taking it to really, to invest the time in it, because it is healing as well as supportive for your work. It's personally healing, I think. So yeah, just beautiful, profound material, and beautifully taught, supported.
Oh, thank you, Maria. That's great to see you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, any other? Yeah, Natalia. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I have a question. I'm a craniosacral therapist, and I wonder if you could say a little bit about how this work that you teach in the course could be applied or used when I treat babies, when they come to me for sessions because they cannot settle, they cry, but not specifically because there is a birth trauma topic or a prenatal problem.
Right. Well, it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not conscious or known or mentioned, like not to scare the parents or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, such an important question. And, I just kind of want to preface what I'll say by saying that I wish everyone who worked with babies, could do their own work so that they can really be present with the babies. So from that perspective, everything we're doing in the training can help. I don't do a lot that's specifically around how to work with babies in the training, but if there was someone like you in the training who is working with babies, that will come in more. And, I do always do some, but everything we're doing around how to work with little ones is very applicable. I think part of your question might be about how to work with the parents too, so that they can handle this. And I find it really helpful to explain to parents, that babies, that we now know that babies are sentient, they're aware from a very early time, and they're having experiences, and that things affect them. And there's no judgment around that. It might have been a difficult time for the parents in some way. And that's not their fault. I find parents are very quick to go into guilt. So I make a point of speaking to that. I learned that very early on when I was, a young graduate student studying pre and perinatal psychotherapy. And I was so enthusiastic about it. I wanted to tell the world. And whoa, did I get some people upset really quickly. And they basically would say, stop blaming me. Like, it never occurred to me to blame anybody. I just think it's important for us to be aware and acknowledge what's happened. So when we approach it as an inquiry process, we can invite the parents to also be inquiring. Right? And where parents aren't open at all, we can still hold the baby with our awareness. And I've had experiences where, babies know what you're thinking. And are you okay to stay another few minutes if I tell a little story? See what else might be here. Yeah. I had an experience very early on when I was still studying intensively with William Emerson. And I was on my way back from an intensive residential with him. That was in California. I was living in Colorado at the time, so I had to fly. And I was in the airport waiting for my plane. And this woman and her little toddler sat down beside me. And William used to talk about shadow leaks, how you could see things in someone's eyes that they weren't aware of. And I've just finished writing another book called Birth as Shadow, looking at how pre and perinatal material is almost by definition unconscious shadow because it's usually not acknowledged and has a profound effect. But what shocked me was I looked at this little girl, if I remember, and to me, her eyes just looked so sad, like something intense had happened to her. And I didn't think her mother would be too happy about me saying something about it. So I just said it silently. I just acknowledged it somehow. And the little girl looked at me and she went, like she wanted to be close to me, like she got it. So I find when I'm working with babies, I also do craniosacral with babies, that it's very easy to acknowledge what's going on with them. And I will ask, usually it's the mother who comes with them, I'll ask the mother, if the baby is looking upset about something, or expressing something, what's your sense of what your baby's trying to tell us right now? And, if she doesn't get it at all, then I might be reflecting to the baby. It's like, yeah, that was really scary. Something back then was really scary, or whatever it is. Because as we do our own work, we can sense that more clearly. So that's a brief version answer. Does that help at all? Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah. And yeah, Razvan, hello.
Yeah,
Good to see
good to see you. I'm Razvan. I'm from Romania, and I'm psychotherapist with some modules of craniopsychotherapy. And my question is, which kind of method will be used during demos or in the practice rooms? You told about meditation, but I'm also curious if we'll use energetic touch, like we'll work at distance with touch. And I'm also wondering if these experiences or methods will be able to apply in face-to-face working with our clients.
So-
For instance, if you teach us touch, energetic touch, if we could have the good parameters of touch with our clients, like intention, pressure, in your experience, if you can transfer this practical knowledge in face-to-face.
Yeah, absolutely. We work exactly the same as we'd work in person. And often in working with little one material, there's a need for physical contact. Now, obviously, we can't do physical contact online, but we can have the intention for it. And people feel it. And it's something we work with in the small womb surround process workshops, and a lot of craniosacral therapists since the pandemic have been working online and have also discovered, they can feel what's going on, the client can feel what's going on. And so we very specifically work with negotiating contact the way we would with a little one. And so I don't have time to demonstrate that here, but there'd be some verbal exchange around it. It's like, well, maybe I can do this just now, actually. Razvan, would you be willing for me to come and sit next to you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is a little faster than I might do normally, but I'm feeling to come and sit on your left side. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to imagine myself slowly coming over to your left side. Whoa. I feel very touched coming close. Would it be okay if I make contact? Like if our shoulders make contact?
Yeah, I need to adjust a little the distance, so like this.
Yeah.
And now it's fine. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I just have an intention to, yeah. You feel that?
Yeah, I feel a presence or a warmth in this area and toward the back.
Yeah. How is that for you?
It's supporting and energizing.
Yeah, great.
Also, the feeling state start to change, like feeling more integrated, more welcomed.
Oh, great. Well, you are welcomed.
It's a comforting feeling coming.
Great.
Mhm.
Well, I'm wondering, we also disengage in the same way with negotiation, but I'm happy to stay here if you'd like me to.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, it's nice to sit beside you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. And physiologically, it was warming up of the body, and now it's balancing the temperature.
Yeah,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, if I shift my attention.
Mhm. Yes.
So, yeah, that's exactly how we make contact with babies and with someone who's working with this material, whether in person or online. So, yeah. So how's that as a little taster?
It was nice. It was feeling real, like it is the capacity to regulate the nervous system, and I think this is important in working with trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do that a lot. That's a major focus in the work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, so just asking the group, how's that as a little taster? Okay. Was that a thumbs up, Helena? Yeah, it wasn't a question. Great. Well, I really want to thank you all for being here. And the training's starting to fill up. So, if you're interested, please send me your application sooner rather than later. It's starting soon. And yeah, I look forward to, well, at least hearing from and getting to know some of you more. So thank you again for being here. And Razvan, I'm just going to move my arm because I'd like to wave to everybody. Yeah, well, go well. And feel free to unmute yourself and say goodbye if you'd like to. Or you can just go.
Thank you very much, Cheriona. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you too. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.